Welcome to Unit 1, Video 6. In this video, we will be discussing ancient China and ancient India, which should be a continuation of the same sections that you had in the last two videos for this unit. So please begin where it says Ancient China in your notes packet. Ancient Chinese civilization was located on the Huanghe River, also known as the Yellow River, in Eastern Asia. This upper river here is the Huanghe or Huanghe River. This river down here is known as the Yangtze River. It will also be important for early Chinese civilization, but the one to focus on is the Huanghe River in Eastern Asia. In ancient China, there were specialized workers. There were those who were in charge of the farming. There were also other positions, which we will talk about as we move forward here. But peasants would be expected to work in the fields and grow rice and wheat. They were quite low on the social hierarchy. There were advanced cities in ancient China. Society was divided between the rich overlords and the poor peasants. So if you were in the lower class, you had very little hope of making it to the upper class. There weren't as many separations in society as we saw in our last video with ancient Egypt. In ancient Egypt, there were 6 different levels. In ancient China, we were just talking about the rich and the poor, so 2 levels. In terms of government and politics, early Chinese civilization was ruled by dynasties. A dynasty is a family that rules. So in other words, a father would rule. When he died, his son would come to power. When he died, his son would come to power. It would pass along in the family. At this time in history, we're only seeing male leaders for the most part. If a female were to rule, it would be the mother of a child, a young boy who wasn't old enough to rule quite yet, but he would inherit the rule when he became old enough. So we'll see dynasties pretty often in ancient China, and they will be ruled father to son. Power will be passed down. The first dynasty was the Xia. The writing system or record-keeping system in ancient China was a system of pictograms. Each character represents an idea, not a sound. So there were a lot of characters to learn in order to be able to write in this pictogram system, because it wasn't just a matter of putting sounds together to form new words. You needed a new pictogram, a new character to represent every single new idea. So here's an example of some of those pictograms. Moving on, we next have ancient India. The ancient Indian civilization that we're going to talk about here is located on the Indus River in the Indus River Valley. It is also known as the Indus River Valley Civilization. So it's easy to tell where it's located because its name tells you. So this blue line here represents the Indus River. This whole area here is India today. And this green area represents where the Indus Valley Civilization was located along the Indus River here. 2 cities that are important to this Indus River Valley Civilization are Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, which are both located right off of the Indus River. There are 2 important mountain ranges that separate India from the rest of Asia, and they make India into a subcontinent. A subcontinent is a separated part of a continent. It's like a small area that's separated from the rest of the continent. So India here is separated by the Himalayan mountains located here, as well as the Hindu Kush Mountains located here. The Hindu Kush go pretty much along the Indus River, which we were just talking about. So the Hindu Kush Mountains and the Himalaya Mountains help separate India, which does allow protection from invaders. Here are some images of the Himalayas, the Himalaya Mountains. Very, very tall mountains, some of the tallest in the world. So they would not be easy to cross over or to find places to cross between, which does provide that protection. One good cross path, I guess, to cross through the Hindu Kush Mountains is known as the Khyber Pass. You take a look, it is located here. These would be the Hindu Kush Mountains. The Khyber Pass is an important trade route into India, and it is also the route that a group known as the Aryans will enter into India from. And this group of Aryans are going to kind of take charge of the civilizations that are going to live in India. As I stated before, two of the most famous cities, most important to ancient Indus Valley civilization are Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, both of which are located right off of the Indus River. These cities are organized in a grid system, which means there were houses in lines. What we would consider today as houses. There were streets, pathways for people to walk, to pull things. So they were organized in a solid system. And so this leads historians to believe that there was a very strong source of government structure. Not a whole lot is known about the Indus Valley civilization because the writing system that was used in the civilization is the one writing system that we have never been able to decipher or to figure out what it says. So we know very, very little about the civilization, but it's believed that because it was organized in this way, that there was a strong government structure. Some households in these cities even had indoor plumbing and working toilets. This is something that will not be seen again for hundreds, if not thousands of years. There was a caste system in ancient Egypt, a rigid class system. Rigid means unmoving. You cannot move between different levels of this class system or social society, social organization. Where you were born into this system determined your social interactions as well as your job or occupation. It even controlled who you could marry. The area of this social system, this caste system that you were born into, you would marry within, you would get a job within, and you would die within. You would never move from one part of this system to another. So you would never become higher on the social hierarchy than you were when you were born. You could always become lower, but you could never go higher, which is why it is considered rigid or unmoving. This is how the social hierarchy or the caste system was broken down. You see that priests are on top. Religion is going to be important in ancient India. Warriors and rulers would come next in the social hierarchy. Third down are skilled traders, merchants, and minor officials. Again, merchants are those who trade goods. Fourth down is unskilled workers. And at the very bottom, you have what are known as outcasts. At this bottom level of society, you will often not even see it on a social hierarchy representation of the caste system because they are considered so low in society. They have what are known as the dirty jobs, which are the jobs where you work with your hands. And these people who are born into this level of the caste system were very much outcasts. They were treated very, very poorly by everyone else in ancient India. The religion in ancient India is similar to that of Egyptians and Mesopotamians. The Indus River Valley civilization was polytheistic, meaning they believed in many different gods. Later in ancient India, we are going to see that these different beliefs are going to combine together and become one of today's largest world religions, which is Hinduism. And we will talk more about Hinduism in our next unit. Now, with the Tigris and Euphrates rivers with Mesopotamia and with the Nile River with Egypt, their rivers flooded at specific times during every year. So the people living there would be able to use that to their advantage. For the Indus Valley civilization, this was not the case. The Indus River was not as predictable with when it would flood. And so that would cause major problems with the destruction of crops and even the loss of life. Sometimes there would be excessive flooding. Sometimes there would be no flooding at all, which would have the opposite effect, where there wouldn't be enough water to water the plants, to be able to grow food, and so there would be famine or starvation instead of flooding. India's climate is dominated by seasonal winds called monsoons. These monsoons come in different directions depending on what time of year it is. In the winter and spring, dry winds blow towards the Indian Ocean. In contrast, in the summer, wet winds blow inland. So this is going to have a big impact on the growing of crops in this region. Because of all of these environmental changes, there's really a lot of difficulty in finding ruins or artifacts from the Indus River civilization. And as I said before, we still have not been able to decipher or figure out what the Indus script, the type of writing used in ancient India, says. And so there's still a whole lot we don't know about these early civilization. And again, specifically looking at the cities of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa. So this is the end of the video on ancient China and ancient India.